everyone, my name is Kaylee and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Okay everybody, hello, happy Saturday. I hope that you guys are having an amazing day. I don't have too many updates for you guys other than it is freezing cold down here in Florida. It's like literally fucking snowing. Like snow is laying on the ground, guys. I'm not even joking. Like look at this shit.
This is it. New measurement for Pensacola, Florida. Let's see what we got here. 7 inches of snow. New record. Previous record 3 inches, which was decades ago, 100 years ago or something like that.
But guess what? Us down here, like further south, we got the fucking short end of the stick. It's just nasty rain and fog. Like earlier I thought that it was snowing and I was like, oh my God, like, are we finally getting snow? Because I would rather have snow than just like dirty rain and mud and disgustingness everywhere. So I like run inside, put on my glasses, go look out the window and I'm like, no, it's just fucking rain. So yeah, if you guys look at my nails, they are grown the fuck out, I know. But I'm gonna be doing a cute makeup look today because like I promised you guys last time, I know the makeup looks have been shitty for the past year and a half, but I got new palettes, so yeah. And the color of the room today is orange because we are going to be doing a cute sunset look. But yeah, that's all the updates that I have for you guys. So let me bring you guys up close. There we go. Okay, so for those of you who may be new here, I'm going to do my quick usual little rundown. For most of the video, I'll be looking in this direction because my mirror's over here and I would like to see what I'm doing. I do tell these story times at a first person point of view, so if you don't like that, then you can leave.
There's the door. There's the door, bitch!
And these story times are set by anonymous people. Okay, so story time about how I found out that my husband was cheating on me with a minor. What is up with y'all and these underage girls? Like it's getting a little sus, to say the least. Honestly, no, it's not. I actually just saw a video the other day saying that like most of the stuff looked up on the internet for is like stuff that has to do with underage girls. So that's nasty. Stop doing that. Thank you. But anyways, yeah, let's get straight into it. So a little background information. There's nothing really to know about my life prior to this situation, other than the fact that my parents really liked the man that I was about to marry because he was rich. Yes. So anytime that there would be anything bad that happened between this man and I, which by the way, we're gonna call my husband Brandon, okay? So yeah, anytime that anything would happen with Brandon, my parents would try the hardest to talk to me about giving him another chance or just letting it go. Like for example, speaking of corn, I didn't like that Brandon watched it. I didn't like it. I am one of those people that thinks watching corn while you're in a relationship with somebody is toxic. I don't like it. So I had a talk with him about it the one night and we got into an argument. After that argument, I packed my stuff because we had lived in like a little apartment. We were maybe together for a year at this point, but I packed up my things and I went back home with my parents and they're like, why are you back? Blah, blah, blah. And I told them and my dad started laughing at me. And then my mom was like, are you serious right now? And I'm like, I literally have my suitcases in the living room. I don't think I'm fucking joking. What do you mean? And she was like, you are so overdramatic. And then my dad chimes in and he's like, yeah, every guy watches corn. He was like, it's natural. He was like, you're being so overdramatic. And then my mom, you know, she asked me, why don't you like it? And I told her, I feel like it creates unrealistic standards for women, AKA, you know, corn stars are supposed to look a certain way. You have an image of them in your head whenever you think of corn, okay? And women who are not corn stars and who live a normal life usually do not look like that. And then my mom goes, well, if you're insecure, you can just say that. She was like, because it seems like that's what you're getting at. And I didn't raise you to be insecure. And I'm like, no, you raised me to let a man walk all over me. Thanks, mom. Bitch. Whatever. So then that was one situation. Obviously we got back together because my parents had talked me into thinking that I was really being overdramatic about this fucking shit, especially whenever I was calling my girlfriends and they were saying that they don't mind that their boyfriend watches corn and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, whatever, maybe I am being so overdramatic right now. And I was low-key insecure because I had been cheated on in the past in like 3 of my relationships. Never got therapy, never thought that it was anything wrong with them. I just thought that it was something wrong with me every time. So yeah, got back together with him. Fast forward. So yeah, I should have been broken up with him before this whole situation even happened, which speaking of, let me give you guys a timeline, okay? Him and we got together whenever I was 21 and he was 24. He was currently still in school at this point, but his family also had money, so my parents were like, cha-ching. Yeah, but that whole situation happened whenever he was 25 and I was 22. Fast forward to present day. I'm 26 and he's 29. So we've been together for about 5 years now. And by this time, he's already finished school and I was training to be a stay-at-home mom. That was my dream job. I didn't want to have to work. All I wanted to do was stay at home, cook and clean, and whenever we had kids, raise the kids, take care of them. You know, the traditional back then type of life for a married couple. And he was completely fine with that. So we had a house together. It wasn't like this beautiful mansion. No, it was the normal, nice 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom house in a cul-de-sac, you know, had all the neighbors there. But I liked where we lived a lot because our house, my husband wanted to make sure that we had privacy, so he had put up a tall fence around the house, which yes, that does come into play. So I'm not just telling y'all that for shits and giggles, keep that in mind. And him and I were not married yet. He was my fiance, but the plan was for us to get married next year because we wanted to start having kids and we did not want to have kids before marriage. So now that you know what my life looks like, present day, let's start off on my beautiful sunny Tuesday morning. So I had been making a lot of preparations for the wedding. I was taking care of everything. Well, everything with his mom. His mom literally wanted to have a say in everything, so it was just a whole mess. But this Tuesday I was going to try on wedding dresses. I was so excited. I got out of bed, I woke up super early so that way I could do my hair and makeup, make my husband breakfast, put out his clothes for work, you know. So I left the house at about 8 in the morning because I was meeting up with his mom. We were gonna go have breakfast and then we were gonna go to the fitting. And my husband was expecting this to be a long day for me. Like he started work at, he had to be at work at 9 in the morning, but then he would usually be home around like 4 or 5 o'clock. But I'm not gonna lie, I loved his mom and we did spend so much time together, so he was expecting me to be gone all day. Like I went to breakfast, went to the fitting, he was expecting me to go to lunch with her, probably go shopping and then go to dinner and then be back home probably around like 8:30 at night. So Mr. Brandon thought he had the whole day to himself. Yes, he did. Well, he was wrong because we went to the place where I was gonna be trying on my wedding dress and it turns out that they had another fitting for somebody else booked at the same time, and they were trying to accommodate and be like, oh well, like, you know, you could try on blah blah blah, but we told them we wanted it to be private because we had a lot of people coming. We have my sisters, I have like 8 sisters. Okay, I'm being over dramatic, I have like 5, but still I have a lot of sisters, and then my mom and my grandma and his grandma. And so we were like, no, this isn't gonna work, so blah blah blah, we'll do it on a different day, whatever. So now, I honestly, real quick, I felt bad because listen, everybody drove like 40 minutes to be there because we lived like 40 minutes away from all of his and my siblings. We moved a little bit outside of town where all of our family still was, which I guess was nice because during the holidays we only had to drive to one place. We didn't have to drive all the fuck over creation, but still I felt bad. So then we just all decide that we're gonna go to lunch together, call it a day, and yada yada. Wasn't gonna be able to get in for another fitting until a few weeks later. So at this time it's about 3:30 in the afternoon whenever I get home, and I tried calling my husband on the way home just to let him know like, hey, I'm gonna be home to cook dinner, you don't need to order anything. I keep calling him my husband. He's not my husband, he was my fiance. But if I say husband, it's because we'd been together for a long time and I already called that man my husband, you know, like hubby, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, my fiance. I called my fiance, Brandon. He didn't pick up. I wanted to tell him, hey, no need to order out. Your wife is coming home your fiance and she's gonna cook dinner for you. No response. So I'm like, okay, whatever, he's probably busy. Especially during this time, it was hard to get a response from him on the phone because everybody's just getting off of work, everybody's hurrying up to get to the pharmacy before they close, so you know, whatever. So I pull into the driveway and I see his car is there. And I'm like, okay, what the fuck is going on? Because he's not answering the phone and his car is here. Sus. But it didn't seem sus at the time. I was kind of just like, okay, whatever. Whatevs. No big deal. It was a big fucking deal. I was like, maybe he came home early from work. Maybe he wasn't feeling well and maybe he's sleeping.
Damn. He don't got a clue in the fucking world. Good luck.
So I walk into the house and as soon as I walk in, I see a pair of Converse sitting by the door. They're not mine. I don't wear fucking Converse. So I'm like, okay. And then I see a book bag sitting on my kitchen counter because a little layout of the house real quick. I park in the garage. So whenever I go into the garage, which by the way, the garage was already open. Another sus thing, because if the garage wouldn't have been open, I would have had to open it and then he would have heard it. So he probably would have been downstairs already to clean everything up. But it was already open, so I pull in, and when you pull in and walk in the house, it doesn't lead you to the living room or something, it leads you into the kitchen. So I walk in, I see the book bag on the counter, I see the Converse on the floor, and I walk over to the book bag, and I see that it has like a little lanyard hanging from one of the zippers. So I look on the lanyard, obviously, to see who the fuck is in my house, and as I'm looking at it, it's a student ID to the high school that is like 10 minutes away from our house. But you wanna know what's even worse? The book bag belonged to my neighbor's 15-year-old daughter. Yeah. Yep. Oh, y'all, I was fucking pissed. So when I see this, I'm like, okay, there has to be a logical explanation. There has to be a logical explanation. So as I'm putting the lanyard down, I look next to the book bag and there is a sandwich bag that had to have had like 30 Xanaxes in there, 30 Xannies in that bag. And I'm like, well, I doubt this bitch would carry around prescribed Xanaxes in a plastic bag if they were prescribed to her. So now red alarms are starting to go off in my brain. Like I'm like, okay. And by the way, y'all, whenever situations happen like this, I feel like personally, my adrenaline starts going, right? And you would think that all of your senses would be heightened, but it's almost like I heard a ringing in my ears and I was like, almost felt like I was disassociating. Because when I finally like came to, realized bag of Xannies, her book bag's here, her shoes are by the door, all of a sudden I start hearing my bed frame slam against the wall upstairs repeatedly. And then I'm like, yeah, he's definitely not helping her out with anxiety or anything. So then I bolt upstairs to my room. I swing open the door and y'all, let's just say I wasn't expecting to walk in on something so disturbing. She was effing my husband. And I don't mean that they were just doing the nasty, no. I mean, he was bent over. Y'all, this is so TMI, I'm so sorry, but I feel like this is like, I need to add everything into the story, okay? I'm trying not to make it weird. So, as I swing open the door and I see this, I scream because I'm not expecting to see that. I know, y'all are like, okay, bitch, well, you should have been expecting the worst of the worst. I expected the worst of the worst, but that was the worst of 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 the worst. Because not only am I finding out that my husband is a pedo, he also, I'm sorry, I associate this with being gay. I think he's gay, and he's a drug dealer. Like, I don't even know what to say. I'm at a loss for words. Yeah. So I scream, they scream, we all scream for ice cream. I'm just fucking kidding. And I'm like, both you get your fucking clothes on right now. And then I walk out of the room. So as soon as I get downstairs, I take the Xannies out of her book bag and I put them in one of the kitchen drawers because that was gonna be a conversation for my husband and my fiance and I later. But then this little gremlin psycho Xanny obsessed beast fucking just bolts down the stairs. She runs over to her book bag and she looks in there and she's like, you took my fucking Xanax, give them back now. She was like, Brandon said I could have those. Give them to me right now. And I'm like, girl, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, listen, I'm gonna walk you home. I'll find them whenever I get back. I will find them whenever I get back and I will come and bring them to you. And she was like, oh, you think I believe that? So I was like, okay, just to prove it, I'll give you one of mine now. So I give her one of them in a little freaking baggie. I gave it to her in a doggy poop bag, so that way she couldn't see that it wasn't a Xanax, because I didn't want to open up the drawer that I had put the Xannies in, which was the sandwich bag drawer in the fucking kitchen, and this little gremlin was up my ass. So Brandon is still upstairs, okay? He is still upstairs doing God knows what, but I wasn't too worried about him. I was more worried about getting this underage girl home who I just found in my bedroom screwing my husband with a bag full of illegal prescription pills in her book bag. So I walk her over to her house, and y'all, when I tell you this was my neighbor's kid, I mean this was my neighbor's, like right next fucking door. So I knock on the front door, and as soon as her parents open the door, this bitch fucking just collapses. She must have taken something before we left the house, or right before I walked in or something, or I don't even know why she would have fainted, but she literally fell over into a flower pot and then off of the fucking porch into the bushes. Now listen, y'all, I don't mean to be like poor me, because this is a teenage girl that has clearly been through some shit lately, okay? But this was supposed to be my day, a fun and exciting day for me. So I was having so much stress and so much anxiety. I mean, I guess it is a good thing that the whole wedding dress thing didn't end up working out, because I wouldn't have came home and found out what was going on. But still, I can be upset. And I was upset. Now, we're gonna call their daughter Rebecca. Rebecca, her dad comes out and he picks her up out of the bushes and he takes her to the hospital because he doesn't know what the fuck happened to her. Your kid just doesn't all of a sudden faint out of nowhere. That's not normal. Also, by the time that I had made it over to the neighbor's house, it was about like 3:50, because like I got home at 3:30 on the dot. So this all happened within a span of like 15 or 20 minutes. So he takes her to the hospital. I go in. I talk to Rebecca's mother, Elise, and Elise and I are actually pretty good friends. So this was even more heartbreaking and upsetting than it would have been if we weren't friends. So as we're sitting in the kitchen, she's like, oh my gosh, like what happened? And I'm like, well, my husband, he was home from work for the day because he was sick, and I had came home early from a dress fitting for the wedding. And when I came in, my husband was sleeping upstairs and she was downstairs in the bathroom in our medicine cabinet. And I was like, you know how our guest bathroom is like right next to the garage door? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, well, I found her in the medicine cabinet in there. And she had a bottle of my prescription Xanax for my anxiety.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
And she was like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't know what to do. My husband didn't know what to do. I woke him up, and she fought with me for a little bit because I wouldn't let her take the Xanax with her. And then I told her like, hey, I'm gonna walk you over here because you don't seem like you're in the right state of mind to walk over to your parents' house by yourself. And listen, y'all, I knew this was all complete bullshit, but I hadn't got the full story from my husband, so like I had to wait. I know it sounds so fucked up, and I made a mistake, but I did not want to jeopardize a life that my husband and I were going to have in case there was some explanation for all of this. So she's like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry that this happened. She was like, what do I do? She was like, she's been acting weird the past few months. Like, I wonder if she's been sneaking into your house, blah, blah, blah. So they end up putting Rebecca in an inpatient rehab, and I go home and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Tell me now, or else I'm calling the police, telling them that you gave drugs to a minor and for sagittary grape, which if you don't know what the sagittary means, it pretty much just means consent between a minor and an adult for estual relations. I'm almost positive that's what I mean. I looked it up. If there's more to it or that's not it, please let me know down below in the comments. And he's like, listen, I don't think I need to get help. Like, if I'm being honest, she told me that Elise and her husband were against therapy and she's been having a lot of anxiety lately. So I was like, well, hold on a minute, when did you run into her to tell her this? And he was like, oh, it was at the one day in the cookout, you know, in the summertime, like a month or two ago. And I was like, okay, keep going. And he's like, well, she was telling me she was having anxiety about some drama that was going on with her friends at school, and she's been having anxiety for the past year. So I was like, oh, well, you know, I could maybe give you something that would help with your anxiety since your parents won't take you to go see a psychiatrist or a therapist. And so the one day before I left for work, you were already out of the house. You were going and getting your nails done or something. And she came over, she knocked on the door. She was like, hey, my anxiety is really bad today. Can I have some of that stuff that you talked about? And so I was like, sure. And I took one of your Xanax and I gave it to her, and I was like, this should help, blah, 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 blah. And if it does help, I'll try and talk to your parents about therapy or taking you to go see a psychiatrist. And so while I'm sitting there, I know that this still should have been in the front of my mind, but while he was telling me this, I started to feel bad for him, because I was like, oh, my fiance was trying to do a good thing for somebody, you know, like that's his usual character, always trying to help others. So I'm like, okay, but that doesn't explain why I went upstairs and I saw her effing you, which is another conversation. And he was like, well, pretty much after that, turns out that I put myself in a situation to be blackmailed by a teenager. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, well, she was telling me that if I don't keep giving them to her, that she was just going to call the police, and you know that if she did that, I would lose my license, blah, 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 blah. I would be in jail. And I was like, okay, so how long has this been going on? Like, how long has she been blackmailing you for? And he was like, well, for a month now. So at this point, I'm like, okay. And I'm like, now what about the other thing? And he was like, well, because I was scared, she had me in the palm of her hand, and the one day she came over to get the Xanax and she just came on to me. And I'm like, so you're telling me this 15 or 16-year-old girl just came on to you at your grown-ass age of 30 years old, 29, 30 years old, whatever the fuck. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, why didn't you stop her? And he was like, well, because she would have told on me. And I'm like, okay, why didn't you come to me about this? And he was like, because I didn't want you to be disappointed in me. So right now, listen, we all want to see the best in our partners. It's just, we want to see the best in the people that we love, and that was where I was at. So I believed him. I know, I believed him. And I was like, okay, well, that does not excuse the fact that you gave drugs to a minor, illegal prescription pills to a minor, which clearly if she was threatening you, it seems like she's low-key addicted to them. So good job. And not only that, but you were having sexual relations with a minor. And I was like, so here's what's gonna happen. I know that you said she blackmailed you into it, but I need you to go get help. Because the fact that you would even be okay with that just to save your ass is not okay. So he goes to therapy. Because there is actually therapy for adults that are attracted to minors. And listen, I didn't think that my husband was a pedo, but I just wanted to make sure that this didn't start something in case this wasn't something like he said it was. You know, like preventative measures. I think that's what you would call what I was doing. But then he was super hesitant about it because he was like, this is embarrassing. I'm not a fucking pedophile, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm not saying you are, but you're fucking going, or I'm calling the police. Pick one. So instead of physically going to a therapist or psychiatrist, he did this one that was online that was super discreet and low-key, which you would think that most of them are, but actually some of them aren't, because it's something that's not talked about a lot, that a lot of businesses will try to put themselves out there just to let people know, hey, there's help, because a lot of people who do have thoughts like those don't end up going and getting help. You guys get the point, okay? Okay. So yeah, fast forward 2 years later. Nothing really happened during those 2 years except for the fact that my husband got the help that he needed, and so did Rebecca. Rebecca had Rebecca had been in rehab she was an inpatient. If you don't know the difference between inpatient and outpatient, obviously inpatient means that you are staying in a facility to get help. Outpatient means that you usually go to meetings or something like that, you know? She was in an inpatient rehab for probably like 3 months. That's a lie, 6 months. She was in for 6 months, but she did come home and then she relapsed and then she had to go back. Which when she relapsed, that was a whole thing that I went through with my husband because I'm like, where the fuck did she get the drugs? And my husband and I were like the only ones that knew about her addiction because obviously we had been in that whole situation. They didn't want anybody else to know, so they told us whenever she relapsed, thinking that she got the drugs from us. And we were like, listen, we have cameras now and she hasn't been in our house. And yeah, so she ended up getting them from somebody at school. During the past 2 years, we had not gotten married because of that whole situation. It was something that I personally decided. I postponed the wedding, which really upset his parents and mine because his parents and him and I morally didn't want to have kids before marriage, but at the same time, he didn't want to tell them what was going on. Neither did I really, so he just told them, don't fucking ask questions. We're not getting married until she wants to. I had postponed the wedding for like 4 years after that situation happened, which everybody thinks is absolutely insane. But we did have twins during that time, a boy and a girl, and I wanted them to be old enough to participate in the wedding because it's like, fuck it, the kids are already here. I want them to be in the wedding, so we're not gonna have it until they're old enough to walk down the aisle with us or something, you know? Husband, he went to therapy, things were going good with him. And during these past 2 years, Rebecca has been in and out of rehab, and I never blamed Rebecca. Okay, I just want to put that out there. I never did, because listen, yes, I believed what my husband was saying, but I also believed that it was not the full truth. Okay, I'm not stupid.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap right now.
Which I know you guys are like, okay, bitch. But I, in my heart, felt that there was some truth to probably both sides of the story. Like, not just one party was innocent. There was one other thing that happened during these past 2 years because Rebecca had went to rehab and she was going through therapy and stuff like that, because I didn't know this, but she had actually went through a lot when she was a kid because her parents ended up getting divorced and she went through some shit with her stepdad, and then her parents ended up getting back together, but her stepdad really fucked her up mentally. Besides the point. She had told her parents the real story of what happened, and I say real with quotations because at this point I still believed my husband, Brandon.
Side eye. Side eye!
So the one day, Brandon was walking our dog, and whenever he would take the dog on a walk, my husband liked to go on hikes. And we had a steep hill, kind of like a mountain almost, in the back of our neighborhood. So he would always take our dog on a walk up that way. And this particular time, Rebecca was sitting on one of the trees that had fallen over and she was smoking a joint. And I guess that he walked over to her and he was like, you know, those aren't good for your lungs, right? And she was like, yeah, I know. And she was like, I'm not doing it for fun. And he's like, oh, well, why are you doing it? And she's like, well, because I have really bad anxiety and right now it's really, really, really fucking bad. So her and my husband get to talking and he's like, well, that shit really fucks up your lungs, smoking in general. He was like, so why don't I give you something that'll help with the anxiety? So she's like, okay, whatever. And he's like, yeah, you know, just before school tomorrow, come stop by the house and I'll give it to you. She's like, okay, sure. So the next day comes around, she is heading out the house for school and she stops by our house. He gives her a Xanax, just one. And there was nothing estual going on at this point. And I guess that this happened for like 2 weeks straight. Every morning before school, she would go and stop over and he would give her a Xanax. And there was never any talk of him asking her parents, Elise and her dad, to get her therapy or anything. Nope, he was just giving them to her for her anxiety. Then she said after 2 weeks, she was pretty much not able to go through a day without taking a Xanax. So she went over to the house per usual in the morning. And then he's like, hey, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I would love to keep giving you stuff that really helps your anxiety, but you know, I'm doing something for you. I think you gotta do something for me. So then she looks at him and she calls him a fucking creep. And she's like, no, you're disgusting, blah, blah, blah. But then she literally left school that day, like walked home from school, came to my house, knocked on the door. I wasn't there because listen, y'all, I know I said I want to be a stay-at-home mom and shit, but that did not mean that I don't have a life, okay? Didn't have kids at this time. I was doing my fucking thing. I was going to yoga. I was hanging out with my girls at the country club, you know, shit like that. So yeah, that same day, she leaves school. She walks home from school, which isn't a long walk, but it's like, holy shit, she literally just fucking snuck out and she went to my house and she was like, I really need one, please. Like, what do I need to do? And then he was like, well, I'll give you one now, but I have to leave for work. So just come by tomorrow around blah, blah, blah time and we'll figure something out. Yeah, we'll figure something out. So next day rolls around, she goes over and they end up figuring something out. And by the way, this is Elise telling me this because she was like, yeah, like my daughter, you know, she talked to her counselor, blah, blah, blah. This is what she's saying happened. And so I like stop her at this point in the story. I'm like, wait, like Elise, you know that Brandon would never, right? And she was like, no, 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 I know. But my husband, he's not so sure. And I was like, oh my God. So anyways, back to the story. Rebecca's version of what happened. From this point on, her and my fiance were having estual relations. And she said that she was only doing it because he was the only one providing her with free drugs. Not only that, but she said that it was really uncomfortable, not only because she didn't want to do it, but because there were things that he wanted to do in the bedroom that just weren't what she found normal. None of it was fucking normal, I can tell you that much. Anyways, and then Rebecca said about the day that all the shit went down, and she did tell the full truth of what happened to her parents. Like, when her mom Elise was telling me, yeah, she said this happened, she said that he gave her a bag full of Xanax and that you walked in and blah, 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 this, that, and the next. And I'm just like, oh fuck. Because then I start thinking to myself, if she told the exact truth about what happened that day, she might be telling the truth about everything else. But then I start to think to myself, and I'm like, probably just telling her that part because she knows that her mom and I are best friends, and that if she lied about that part, I would fucking, you know, call her out on it. So then I like have to do some damage control, and I'm like, listen, I'm like, you know that Brandon would never do anything like that. I definitely would not condone anything like that. And not only that, but you know, one of my cousins is an addict, and something that my family and I have had to deal with all the time is the lying and manipulating for sympathy, and it's just what addicts do, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, if you even need footage, like I have footage of her getting into our garage and stuff. And she's like, you do? And I'm like, yeah, like I would not lie to you, Elise, I wouldn't. I was fucking lying to her. So I go home, I get my laptop, I bring it over, and I'm like, you know, see, these dates, she's coming through here, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't know anything about what happened other than when I walked in and saw her, and the fact that there's footage of her breaking into our house every day. And she's like, oh my gosh, wow. I wish that, you know, you would have told me you had this stuff sooner. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, you know, I just thought that you guys were handling it. I didn't want to get involved, you know? She's like, yeah, I get it. And so literally that night at 3 in the morning, Rebecca's dad comes over and he apologizes to me. And he's like, I just want to let you know that I am so sorry. He was like, I know that Elise told you that I thought that Brandon did something to my daughter. I didn't know that she had been breaking into your house and stealing you know, your stuff. And I was like, it's fine. Like, listen, you know, we all make mistakes. I was like, and trust me, my family, we have addicts in my family. I know the lies that they come up with. And he was like, honestly, this has been going on so long to the point where we're just sending her to military school. And that's whenever I'm like, no, don't do that. I was like, listen, take it from somebody who has family that's experienced this. She doesn't need military school. She needs therapy. She needs to be in some sort of outpatient group thing, not just inpatient. And he's like, yeah, you know, thank you for the help. Any other things that you know would help with this, please let Elise and I know. We just want our daughter to get better. And I'm like, no, I completely get it. I understand. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, the night that they had came to the house, like Elise's husband and Rebecca's dad, Rebecca was with him. Like he literally made Rebecca apologize to my husband, Brandon. And then he told her to go home, and that's whenever we talked about the whole military school and rehab and blah, 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 this, that, and the next. So now, fast forward a few months, Brandon had went away for a few days because one of his best friends was getting married and he wanted to go to the bachelor party. So I was at home with the babies, you know, my little pride and joys. And by the way, him and I were doing great at this point. I didn't bring up anything about the conversation that I had had with Elise because in my book, the whole situation was over and done with and taken care of. You know, like no need to open old wounds. I think that's how the saying goes. So yeah, husband's away, and I would say like 2 nights after he left, which he was gonna be gone for like 6 days, I wake up at 1 in the morning to a phone ringing, and I fucking shoot up because I'm like, oh my god, I do not need this waking up the babies, because this phone was loud, y'all. Like, I check my phone, it's not mine. I'm like, I know that Brandon didn't leave his here because he's been texting me. What's going on? I run into the bathroom because that's where I hear the phone ringing from. And I'm like looking around and the phone stops ringing. But I still am like, where the fuck is this phone? What phone was ringing? And listen, y'all, I was tired as fuck because I've been taking care of my twins who are literally like in their terrible twos right now, / getting there. So I was fucking exhausted. So I go back to sleep. I wake up in the morning and I honestly just thought that maybe I just had a crazy ass dream, because ever since I got pregnant, I've been having very vivid, weird dreams. So I woke up in the morning, thought that it was just a dream. And because it was so minuscule, I didn't even think twice about it. So I go on with my day. I took the twins to Brandon's parents' house so that way they could watch them while I went and did some fucking maintenance, because y'all, my hair looked a mess, my nails looked a mess, I was a mess. I just needed a reboot. So drop them off there, and then I pick them up at around like 8 o'clock at night. We go back home. And they have a bedtime schedule that they go by, which pretty much they are not allowed to be put down to bed until 8:30, but not after 10 o'clock. Like it has to be between then. Nothing before, nothing after. So I put them to bed at like 9:30, and then I get ready for bed, I go to sleep, whatever, and then I wake up the next morning and I'm in the bathroom brushing my teeth whenever I hear this phone start to ring. And I'm like super fucking freaked out because I was like, wait, I thought that was just a dream. What's going on? And I didn't call and tell Brandon about this the first time because I just thought that it was a dream. Like I said, didn't pay any attention to it. And then the second time that it happened, I didn't call him either because I've also gotten to a point where I've just been taking mental notes of anything weird that's happened because of everything that we have been through these past few years. So anyways, back to the phone. This phone starts ringing and I'm looking around the bathroom like crazy now. And then I realized, like I'm checking underneath the cabinets because I thought that's where it was coming from. But then I look at the toilet and I'm like, now why the fuck does it sound like a phone is ringing from inside of my toilet? But then the ringing stops. So I'm like, fuck, I don't know where this fucking phone, where this ringing is coming from. I go through my day. Fast forward to that night, 12:30 a.m. I'm laying in bed, scrolling on my phone. I hear the fucking phone ringing again. I bolt out of bed and run to that fucking bathroom. And I hear it coming from inside the toilet. So I pick up the toilet lid and I don't see anything in there. I'm like, okay, what the fuck? So I put the toilet lid back, looking through the counters again, and I'm like, I'm going insane. So then I go to the guest bathroom, which is on the other side of the wall in my husband and I's bathroom. I'm looking in there, can't find anything. Okay. Now, it's probably like 2 days before my husband's supposed to come home. And I was kind of happy because my husband did call me saying that he was going to stay another day with his friend because his friend had accidentally booked the Airbnb for a week instead of just 6 days, which I know that his friend didn't do that. He did it on purpose. But I was like, yeah, sure, stay, you know, have a good time, do what you need to do. Cause I'm trying to play Clue in my fucking house right now. So yeah, that day was pretty much just a chill day. I brought the babies into my room and we all were just hanging out in the master bedroom and the bathroom door was open and I could not stop glancing at the toilet. Like something was off. I knew that there was something in that fucking toilet. So then I walk over and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna check one more time. If I don't find anything, I'm going to just leave it alone and I'm gonna tell Brandon about it. So then I go into the bathroom and I pick the toilet lid up and a phone in a sandwich bag with a piece of duct tape around it falls straight onto the floor almost in the toilet. And I look and I'm like, someone taped a fucking cell phone to my toilet lid. So now I'm like, what the fuck? And I pick up the phone. Obviously I know that this is my husband's. It's not mine. Nobody comes into our room. We've lived in this house now for quite a few fucking years. So the phone was like barely charged. I go, I plug it in and I try to open it. There's a password. Funny thing about my fiance, he hates technology. He hates phones and everything. So he always has an easy password. So what do? I go on there, I type in every password that I can think of, none of them works, and then I realized that he changed all of his passwords to the twins' birthdays. So I type in their birthday, what do you know, it fucking works. Dumbass. So I get into the phone and I find messages between him and this person in the phone called Yoshi. Yes, Yoshi, like from Mario Kart. I used to have a Yoshi video game on the Nintendo 64 and I fucking loved that game. Was obsessed with it. Like, does anybody else remember playing that game?
Like, no one cares.
Back to the story. So I find these messages between my husband and this person called Yoshi. I open up their conversation and for the past few days, Yoshi has been blowing up this fucking phone, like blowing it up. I guess that what my husband did, which he thought that he was slick, he wasn't. He put the phone on like a do not disturb where nobody's notifications would be able to get through until like a certain time of the day. But his dumbass accidentally didn't put it for like a full 24 hours. That's why I was able to hear it sometimes, but then I wasn't able to hear the other 130 times that Yoshi had tried to call this phone. Because yes, literally she tried to call the phone 132 fucking times. Like I said, he's awful with technology. Thank God he is though. Thank you, Lord, that he is terrible at technology. Anyway, so yeah, Yoshi's blowing up his phone. And when I get into these messages, I see, please, I'll do whatever you want. My mom said that you're on vacation right now. I can go in and get them. Just tell me where they are. Blah, 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 this, that, and the next. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait, this has gotten so serious to the point where my husband literally bought another phone? Are you fucking kidding me? He bought another phone. So then I go into the call log and there are voicemails upon voicemails upon voicemails. I get on there. A lot of them are muffled voicemails, but like some of them were of some girl crying. I'm saying some girl like I didn't know that it was Rebecca. It was fucking Rebecca. I knew instantly as soon as she said, you know, my mom said that you're gone. Just tell me where they are and I'll go and get them. So yeah, there's like voicemails of her crying. She's like, fine, I'll just fucking ruin your life. And then the next voicemail would be like, I'm sorry. Please ignore that message. I just really want to see you. I miss you. And then like trying to talk sexual because I guess that she thinks that he was going to respond if she would be sexual. Which I'm sitting here and like, I feel awful about this. I'm like, wow. Like, wow, this is bad. So then I go back into the messages and I'm like scrolling up to see how long this has been going on, because I thought that everything had been done and over with. And y'all, when I tell you the shit that was in these messages going back and forth between Rebecca and Brandon was the worst shit I've ever seen in my life. Like, I'm talking jail. I'm talking fucking prison, electric chair, lethal injection, bad. So I don't know why I had this idea, but I decided to go around the house and look in every other fucking bathroom, lift up the toilet, like look inside the toilet lids in every other bathroom. And in every single bathroom, there were pills taped, like pills in sandwich bags taped to the toilet lid. So that night, by the way, like I'm also trying to keep an eye on my kids while this is going on, because they decided to be extra cranky this day. They knew what mom was going through, most likely. But as soon as I find this, I pack a diaper bag. I take them to my parents' house because Brandon was a mommy's boy. And I just had this feeling that if I confronted him about this and they had the kids, I wasn't seeing my kids for a while. And then I text Yoshi while I'm dropping the babies off at my parents' house, which is 40 minutes away. Hey, on the way home, my fiance and the kids are staying at their grandparents tonight. So just go into the house, you know the garage code, and I'll be there soon. And I did this, one, because I knew that she would have saw my car and she would have thought that it was weird if, you know, she just went through the front door at this time of night. And two, so that way if she did see me when she walked in the house and then tried to run out, she wouldn't be able to leave because she would have already been in the house and I would have been like, wait a minute, hold up, bitch. So that's what happens. I drive back, come into the house, she's sitting on the couch, she sees me, she's like, oh fuck. And I'm like, so we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And as I'm walking her back to her house, she's pissed. She's fucking pissed at me. She's like, oh, what? Are you gonna tell my parents some bullshit about how I broke into your fucking house and about how I'm forcing your husband to screw me and then threaten him if he doesn't give me drugs? And honestly, I didn't even know what to say to her, because now I knew after what I saw in those text messages that my husband had been lying about everything, which also, let me just say, thank God that man and I did not get married. But yeah, so I just didn't respond to her. And she was like, of course, you're not gonna tell anybody the fucking truth. So I walked her home and I sat down in the kitchen with her, Elise, and her dad, and I gave them the phone. I told them everything, because now that I had kids of my own, it was really hard for me to even try to see the good in him or sympathize with him even the littlest bit, because now in my head I'm like, okay, if this was happening with one of my kids, what would I do? Now, don't get me wrong, her parents were fucking pissed. They were pissed. And I'm not gonna sit here and act like they didn't have every right to be. They did. Like, what happened was fucked up, and the fact that I let him get away with it the first time is even more fucked up. And everything that Becca went through was even more fucked up. But as much as they were mad, they also, listen, her parents thankfully are very understanding people. And I don't know where this whole thing came from about them not letting her get therapy, but that wasn't true either. They were very much a pro mental health household. So, you know, I'm sitting there, I'm apologizing, I'm bawling my eyes out, not so they can feel bad for me, but just because I feel like a shitty person, and I'm realizing now that my husband is an awful piece of shit. So, you know, they're like, listen, like, we know how hard this must be for you, especially with the babies, blah, 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 this and that. So the next day, I call my husband's work because I'm like, okay, he must have been getting these pills from somewhere. He's a fucking pharmacist. Like, there's no way. Because my Xanax that were prescribed to me from my own psychiatrist, I wasn't missing any. And my husband wasn't prescribed Xanax. So called his work, you know, they said that they would look into it, they would handle it. As for Rebecca, her parents said that they were gonna handle the stuff that was going on with her. And yeah, so this whole thing is still going on because this was very recent, like very, very recent. 2025 has not been a good year for me. And just a little advice for all of the women out there. Looking back on this whole situation, the only reason why I did not leave this man was because I did not want to be alone. Not only did I not want to be alone, I think I was also just more scared of what was gonna happen to me because I didn't have anything. I told y'all, my dream was to be a stay-at-home mom. But guess what? That bit me in the fucking ass in the end because guess what? I didn't have anything for myself. He was the breadwinner. He had the money. He had everything. The cars were his. So if I could give you guys any piece of advice from this story other than literally take notes of everything that I did fucking wrong here, make sure that you always have a way out. I don't care if you think he is the most perfect man on the fucking earth. Always make sure you have a way out. I don't give a fuck if you guys are married. If you guys are married, make sure that you have money put aside just in case. And yeah, because I'm completely convinced that if I would have had my own money, or I knew that I would be okay financially by myself, I would have 100% left this man, especially after I'd found out all the information. But in my case, my parents were obsessed with him, didn't want me to leave him because of money, which speaking of, I did end up speaking to my parents after this, and they wanted to know why I would not believe my husband because we are a team, we're supposed to stick together, we're supposed to be a united front, and I just kicked him to the curb, stabbed him in the back, when obviously we all know that's not that's not at all what happened. But that just goes to show you I couldn't go there. I was actually lucky enough that one of my sisters had spare room in her house for me and my kids. But yeah. Okay, everybody, that is the end of today's video. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button down below. And if you want to know whenever I post my next video, make sure to click that bell. And if you guys want to send in your anonymous story time, or you want to know how to send in your anonymous story time, make sure to click the links down below in the description. But other than that, I will see you guys next time with a new story time.